Hi there. This is going to be a kind of tutorial on how to get a character that you downloaded from Mixamo.com and get it into Blender and then export that into Havok Animation Tool with the view that once you've got it in there you can use it in either your own game or whatever, or you can use it in Project Anarchy. Here's the finished result. This is a free character and a free animation that I've downloaded from Mixamo.com. And the goal here was to get the character in, obviously with the mesh and the texturing correct, get the animation in, get that working correctly, get the character facing in the correct direction, and get the motion extraction working correctly. As you can see, he's walking across the screen correctly there. So that's the goal of this. This is more of kind of a record for me to see what I did, because it wasn't as easy as it should have been, I think. So I had a few problems getting this character in. So I'm going to do a video of this and then you can see how it's done. So first thing you want to do is go to mixamo.com. Well, it says purchases, but it's actually free. I've purchased the character Justin and the basic locomotion pack. These are both free. There's 7 animations and this character that you can get. And you need to download in Collada format to import into Blender. There is a thing on here that says Collada for Blender 2.49. But Blender 2.49 is ancient now, so you don't need to bother with that. You want to download Collada format, and take note that it's 30 frames a second here, at least that's the one I'm picking. So 30 frames a second, Collada format. Download that. I've already done that, and you get a zip file here. So I'm going to extract that zip file. And there you go, there's all my animations and my textures in there as well. So got my Collada stuff. I'm going to go to Blender. I'm using Blender 2.71, which is not the latest, but it's pretty new. Don't need that cube. I'm going to go to File, Import, Collada format, and just let me find that path. And I'm just going to import the basic model Justin. I think that's just the T-pose. So the ones that don't have at next to them don't have an animation on. So you can see there's the 7 animations and just the model on its own. So I'm importing that, and there's my model, which appears to look okay, but it's not got the texture on it. I don't think they import with the textures on. They do have the UV mapping and everything, but the texture's not there. So I'll just create a UV window, and all you have to do is apply the actual texture back to the model. So I'm going to create a UV window here, or an image editor. Select the mesh, it's already selected there. Put it in edit mode, press A to select everything, and just apply. Well, it's already on the list. I don't know why that manages to appear on the list, but it's not there. You click open and apply that texture, and there you go. You can see it's quite well mapped. That won't show up in the viewport yet, but if I go back to my default view, I will select textured view, and there's my guy with the texture on. And I'm also going to just change the shading to GLSL, otherwise it's incredibly slow. And I'm going to set the material to shadeless, just so you can see it better. So save that now. I've already got a test folder I've done before. I'm doing this again now. So I'm going to save that called justin.blend. And so there's my basic character. If I select the armature there as well, I can just click X-ray on, and then you can see that the armature's there. So that's just the basic character, no animation, but I've reapplied the texture, created a Blender file, and I've saved it. Now the next step, and this is an important one, because when I was trying this I kept forgetting this, you need to set the frame rate before you import any more of the animations. The frame rate default in Blender here is 24 frames a second. Remember, all my animations are at 30. If you forget to do this, you'll import them, they will work, but they'll all be the wrong timing. So you need to set that to 30. I'm going to save that now, so I don't forget that I've set that frame rate to 30. Now I can start importing my animations. Originally I couldn't work out how to do this. It seemed incredibly difficult, but it's actually quite simple when you know how. What you have to do is go to import another Collada file, and now I'm going to import, well, I've got 7 animations. I'm only going to do one just to keep it short, but I'm going to import the walk animation. Click import on that. Now that's actually imported, but it's giving me another armature, another skeleton, and another mesh. So if I click play, it is there, but it's not applied to my mesh, as you can see. So all I need to do to apply it to my mesh is I go to my armature there, which is the initial one that I imported, and I need to create a dope sheet window here. I need to go to dope sheet, and I need to go to action editor. Now, as you can see, I've got my initial character that I imported got armature action, and the new one that I've imported has got armature 001 action. And now that's actually the walk animation. So to apply it to this armature, all I have to do is select it. I'll rename it as walk. And you need to click this F thing, which is fake user. Now that will make sure that it's saved even if it doesn't have any references, because what I'm going to do now is I'm going to delete that one that I just imported, which when I delete it, it leaves behind glasses 01, and the actual mesh itself. So go back to my armature. So what I did there was I imported it, I took the animation, the action, applied it to my mesh that was already there, or my armature that was already there, and then I deleted the thing I'd just imported. So as you can see, I've got walk there and armature action, which is the T-pose. I'll just rename that to T-pose. And you need to put a fake user on that if you want to save that as well. So I've got these 2 actions now, and let's just check. So there's my walk animation applied to the model, and I also have the T-pose, which doesn't do anything, but there it is. So if you want the other animations, strafe left, strafe right, and the other ones, and whatever else that you've downloaded, you do the same thing. You have to import the Collada file, apply the action to there, make sure you click fake user, and then you can delete your old armature, and then you can apply all these to just one single armature and then switch between them in the actions. So I'll save that, and do make sure you've selected the correct frames per second before you start, otherwise you're going to make a right mess of things. So now I've got that, I've got my mesh, I've got one of my animations. Now I can export that as an FBX file, because it's the FBX file that we need to import back into the Havok Content Tools pipeline. So I've got the armature selected. I'll also select the mesh. It's important if you're going to do that. You need to select both of these things. I'm going to go to export, and now I'm going to export as FBX. So just in FBX, that's fine. We need to export as a binary. I did some experiments exporting in the ASCII format, and it didn't work. So that's just to warn you about that. I only need to export the mesh and the armature, and only the selected objects. And I don't know if you saw before, but the armature was scaled at 0.01. So I'm assuming that's centimeters or something. I need to scale it up by 100 to make this work. And everything else can stay the same, I believe. I'm going to bake the animations in, apply modifiers. This axis thing here, I'm not sure if that either doesn't work or I don't understand it, but it looks like it's going to remap the axis to -z forward and y up, and it doesn't appear to change anything, so I just leave those as they are. I think they do change things when you change them, but I just leave those as they are and don't touch them. Otherwise weird things start happening with the model. So basically all I did there was scale it up by 100, selected objects, and select armature and mesh, and that's it. So I'm going to export my FBX into binary format. So that's all me done in Blender for now, but I'll just show you here that if you notice that I want my character pointing down or facing down the x-axis, and I think the Havok Content Tools by default does it that way. So everything in my game faces down the x-axis, and as you can see, he's not facing down the x-axis, he's facing down the negative y-axis. So I did try to correct this. I did some experiments trying to correct this in Blender, and whatever I did just screwed the model when it got into the export section. So in the end I decided I'm going to leave the model exactly as it is, and I'll correct it with a transform in the export tools in a moment. So I'll show you how I did that. But essentially I can change the rotation of the character by changing the matrix when I export this. So there's my blend file, there's my FBX file. I can have a look at that in, comes out massive, but I can have a look at that in the Autodesk FBX review. And there's my, I've only exported that one action, but there it is. So it looks reasonable, it looks like it might work. It's got a little star by the frames there, I don't know what that's all about. But it looks like it's a 30, it's got 30 then star, I wonder what that means. Well, we'll find out that in a minute, but there is going to be a problem with the frames, and I'm actually doing it incorrectly here to show you that I think it's a bug in Blender. I've reported it, so I'm doing it this way first so you can see what happens and what happens with the animation. But I think there is going to be a problem with the number of frames in this animation. So it looks reasonable for now, it looks like it might work, but let's give it a go. So next thing is to put it through the command line FBX importer. You need to install all those from Project Anarchy site if you haven't done so already. And if I just have a look at this, that's the script to import it. It's just going to run that convert Python script, and just in FBX. And the I stands for interactive, and I need interactive mode because I'm going to have to fiddle with a load of the settings in a minute to make this work. So let's just run that, and it's going to import that. So in this interactive mode, it is quite hard to tell what it's doing, but it's going to go through this process a few times of importing different things. This first one is it's creating the vision model. So if you look at that, it's creating the Justin.model, and it's going to export the texture. So just want to add a bake scale to that. It recommends you do that. And this is the part where I'm going to make the model flip to be the way I want it. So rather than using the in transform scene, rather than using the identity matrix there, which is going to keep everything as it is, I'm actually going to use custom, and I'm going to use this matrix here. I'm just changing those 4 values. The Z value is staying the same. What I'm actually doing there is just turning it 90 degrees around the Z axis, and I'm going to have to apply that to everything I do. So this, as you can see, this is going to be quite tedious doing this by hand, but you can save these configurations for later and do them again, so you can reapply them later on. So if I run that, I get this warning about no bind pose. I don't know what to do about that. But then I should get, well, there's my vision model viewer, or Project Anarchy viewer. If it doesn't look right here, you've already messed it up. So at this point you should have a model that looks right. Maybe without the textures, fine, but if the mesh looks screwed up or you haven't got the bones right, then it's not going to work, and you need to look at the bones there to make sure you've got the bones right. So that one looks okay, and I didn't see the other one. So it says no animations created. It usually brings up the other one as well. Oh, I have to bring up the preview. That's right, I need to add a... Where are we? I think it's preview or something like that. It's in core. Yeah, so I actually loaded a previous configuration because I had to I just had to check. You need this preview tool on as well, and right to platform there, because that will show you it in the actual Havok viewer as well. So if I run this again, the preview tool was in graphics, by the way. And where's right to platform? These are actually covered on the Project Anarchy site. If you look, it tells you which ones to put in here. But let's just run that again. We should get, there we go. We should get 2 viewers opening, one for Vision and one for Havok. So there's my Vision viewer, which, make sure you take a look at the bones. They look okay. And here's the Havok one. Again, it looks enormous, but it looks good. So if these don't look good in either of these, there's already been a mess. So that's my first step done. I've got the model converted. So I'm going to close that. And as you can see, every time I go through in this interactive mode, it closes it down, reopens it. And obviously, if you've had any configurations loaded or whatever, then it ends those. So this one, as you can see what it's doing there in the command line, this one is the rig. And again, I'm going to put this through my custom matrix to flip it the right way. So it's just changing those values and run that. Again, I'm getting my errors about no bind pose, but I'm not sure what to do about that. So that's that one done. Save changes, nope. Next one, again, we can tell what it's doing. It's going to do the walk animation now. So again, I'm going to have to put my custom matrix in. Obviously, if your model is facing the correct direction or whatever, then you don't have to bother with this. But I'm assuming that they're all going to be facing the same way when they come in from any of the Mixamo.com characters. And if you want them on the x-axis, well, you can just use that matrix there. So I'm creating skeletons, creating skins, create animations. That's all fine. Now this is the part where we need to fiddle with, and this is the part that confused me a bit as well. I need to extract the motion from that animation. As you can see, it was an animation that moved along the axis. I want to extract that motion so we can apply it later on in the game. Now here's the confusing part. We have allowed motion, which are these up here, but we also have ignored motion. So currently I'm allowing all the motion, but then down here I'm ignoring it all as well. And this confused the hell out of me for a while, because I just thought, well, if I've got these ticked, then it's going to work. But then I forgot about these down here that are ignoring it. So I don't know why they're both there. There's obviously a reason for it, but what that reason is, I have no idea. But as this is a walk animation and it's just walking forwards, I only want to allow the forwards and backwards motion. If you do leave this right and left motion on, what you'll find, the character turns very slightly to the left, so you'll end up with the character veering off very slowly, you know, like 1 degree a second or something like that. So you want your forwards, just the forwards and backwards motion, but you don't want to ignore the forwards and backwards motion either, otherwise it doesn't work. And the other thing you want to do, this sampling section, if you don't pick the correct bone here, it doesn't work. This current setting here will not import any animation. So you want to use an alternative reference and pick the armature. I'm going to pick the hips. If I don't pick that, it's not going to work. If I don't untick ignoring that, it's not going to work. And if I don't have that tick, it's not going to work. So so that's my scene transformed. I've extracted the motion, and I think that should be it. So it looks okay. Again, you can see the coordinate system that my up and down is Z and forward and backwards is X. That's how it's been set up by default in this, and that's how I like my stuff anyway. So that's why I'm doing that matrix transformation. So close that, and that's it, because I've only imported one animation. You'd have to go through one of those for each animation that you import. So if you've got 100 animations, you'd have to do that 100 times. You can save the configurations, but they're going to be slightly different for each one. So strafe left and right, you can't use the same motion extraction that I just put in there. You'd have to do a separate one for that. But you can save the configuration and go through that all again. So what I've got there is what came out of that was my model, which we saw actually during the export process. Let's hope that opens. There's my model. So that's what you're actually showing your game engine. And I've got this walk animation and the rig, which I'm going to put into Havok Animation Tool. I also got the texture came out of that somehow. So let's go in here, that's the old one. I'm going to do a new project. Again, let's just paste my folder in there. So this is going to be called Justin Hat, and it's going to put it in a folder called Justin Hat. And let's configure the new project. So character assets, characters, etc., etc. I don't think we have to do anything in here right now. Say OK on that. So that's my new hat project. It's created in there, Justin Hat. There's my project. What I want to do now, I need to take the animations that I created, which is that armature walk, and I need to put that into the animations folder, and the rig, I'm going to cut that, and I'm going to put that into the character assets folder. I'm going to go back here. I'm going to do a new character. I'm going to call that Justin. So that's my new character. He's been given a new behavior by default, and got no skeleton there for some reason. That's strange. Do I have to reload the do I have to reload that to make that work? Yeah, apparently I had to reload that to make that work. So there's another little trick. So I'd already put the rig file into the assets folder, but it wasn't appearing, and I reloaded the project, and now it is. So pick that. We found skins in the skeleton. Would you like to use that? Of course I would. There we go. So let's see what we got. Oh, and there we go. There's my character, and he's massive. So the other thing you've got to do is go to scale and set that to 0.01. This is because Havok uses meters and Vision uses centimeters. So I need to scale him down. So I can look at him in there. So there's my character. And as you can see, it looks like he's pointing in the correct direction. So I'm not going to say it yet, but let's show a forward vector. Forward vector is enormous. There it is. And let's show the extracted motion as well. So there's my character just in a reference pose that doesn't do anything. There he is. So now I'll import that clip, that animation clip. There it is, walk. And let's have a look. Is he going to work? Let's put the camera tracking on. And there we go. And that, appears to have worked. And I got to this stage a couple of times and I thought, well, that's it, I've done it. But unfortunately, I don't think I have, because if I slow this animation down to quite slow, you'll see this little kink in the animation when it loops. If you watch just here, click, and its foot, there's a little, there's actually, it just looks like it's skipping a frame or something like that. And if I have a look at the actual clip in here, it's come out 30.99, but the frame, it's got 31 frames in the animation. It's already picked loop. So if I have a look at in Blender, click my armature, go to my walk action, zoom in on that, and you look at that, and that's frame 31 there, so you think that's right, but it's not, because this starts at frame 0. So this is actually a 32 frame animation. But in here, it's come out as a 31 frame animation. So it took me ages to figure this out, but I'm pretty much convinced this is a bug in Blender, that it's skipping out, the exporter is skipping out the last frame of animation, because I tried it with just a basic scene with no skeletons, just rotating something, and it duplicated the last 2 frames of animation, which doesn't sound like a huge problem, but it's enough to make this looping animation just not work correctly at all. So there it is. See, the actual motion extraction, the direction's working, but there's that little glitch there. So I've reported this as a bug on the Blender website because I believe this is a Blender bug. When I look at the FBX that's exported in the viewer, it appears to have a duplicate last frame. So there you go. So the only way around I found this, I mean, I've shown it you this way doing it wrong because this is what I did and I thought I'd finished, and only when you slow the animation down and take a good look at it do you realise that it's broken. The only way around I could find for this was to go to your walk animation or the walk action, go back to the dope sheet, and just take the last frame and duplicate it. So I'm going to click Shift D. I'm just going to duplicate that last frame, and then I'm going to do this all again now. So export to FBX, overwrite that one. Oh, I need to make sure. You need to make sure you've got everything selected if you're just only exporting selected things. Export FBX. I think all these settings have stayed the same. And then I'll go through that process again basically, but this time all I've done is duplicate the last frame. So essentially I should get a 33 frame animation out of that, but I'm actually going to get a 32 frame animation out of that. So I don't know what's going on there. I don't know if this is a glitch in Blender, a bug in the export, or a bug in the import, or something, but something strange is going on there. So I'll just go through that again, and I'll re-import that animation and we'll see if we can get that one to work. So ideally when you go through these and set them up, you should save the configuration set so you can reload it later on, and then you don't have to keep going through this process. But as you can see, this is quite tedious. So that's what I've got for the original one. I've got my matrix there, got my preview tool, everything's going. So let's try that. So the vision model looks alright still, and everything looks okay. I mean, I've only really changed the animation, so nothing should have changed here, but it's okay just to be just to make sure. There goes the rig. Make sure I put my custom matrix on it. Let's run that one. And this is my walk animation now. So I'll just set this one up again so that you can see how I did it. There's my matrix. And it's really the extract motion thing I've got to be worried about. So I want to only allow forwards and backwards, but I also don't want to ignore forwards and backwards. And I need to pick the hips. If you don't pick the hips, it's not going to work. If you pick that, it doesn't work. You pick that, it doesn't work, whatever. I need to pick the hips as my reference for the motion extraction. And that's it. And I'll run that now, and what you'll see here, look, frames 32. But as you can see, there was actually 33 in here. We have a keyframe on 0 going up to 32. That's 33 frames. But it only picked up 32, and when I look at this in the FBX viewer as well, it seems to only pick up well, it seems to duplicate the last frame or something, so no idea what that's all about, but that's the fix anyway. Duplicate your last frame and close that, and that's us done there. So I've got my, I'm going to just put those back into the hat project, paste my animations into there, and the rig's probably not changed, but won't do any harm to just paste that back in there. So save all that. I'm just going to reload this project that I created. Oh, there you go. My arrow's not enormous now anymore. So you can see my forward vector's right. And let's just click the walk animation. And it looks okay. Motion extraction is working. mesh looks okay. Let's slow it right down and take a look. To 0.1. There's where it broke before, I think. But it appears to be walking correctly. Let's just keep checking. So as his left foot crosses that axis there, and it's perfect. So there you go. So that's taking a Mixamo.com character into Blender. Obviously, now I've got that in Blender, I've got a place where I can actually edit that if I wanted to, or if you wanted to give that to somebody, you can actually do stuff with that if you want to change it or add new animations that Mixamo.com don't give you. And we've got him into here. I've just got one of the animations, but you can repeat for this whole thing. I'm assuming you'd have to do that keyframe glitch at the end for all of them, but that appears to work quite well. And I think that is the lot. So I hope you learned something from that. I mean, obviously there's more to the pipeline to this. There's the, you need to export from here and get into Project Anarchy or whatever. But I think if it's working correctly in there, then there's a good chance that you've got most of the pipeline done, and you'll be able to get that into Project Anarchy. So I hope you learned something from that. I certainly did. It took me a while to figure all this out, and I will catch up with you next time.